Are you seriously still scrolling Netflix while Apple TV is sitting right there, loaded with some of the most brutal, most emotional, and most jaw-dropping war films ever made? We are going deep. We are going controversial. Some of these picks will make you question everything you thought you knew about war cinema. Buckle up, because this countdown starts at number 15 and only gets more insane from there. Number 15, American Sniper. 2014. Let's kick this off with a film that genuinely broke box office records and broke audiences in half at the same time. American Sniper is one of the most divisive war films ever released, and that division is exactly what makes it worth watching right now. Directed by Clint Eastwood and starring Bradley Cooper in a physically and emotionally transformed performance, this film follows Navy SEAL Chris Kyle, the most lethal sniper in American military history. Cooper gained massive amounts of weight and muscle to disappear into this role, and the result is something that feels less like acting and more like witnessing a man slowly lose himself to war. The film does not glamorize combat. It shows you a soldier who is extraordinary at a job that is destroying him from the inside out. His wife watches him come home again and again as someone she no longer recognizes. The domestic scenes hit harder than the gunfire. The tension in every rooftop sequence will make your palms sweat. Critics gave it 71%, but audiences gave it 84%, and that gap tells you everything. This is a film that connects with real people on a gut level that critics sometimes miss entirely. Number 14, Fury. 2014. Picture 5 men locked inside a steel coffin, rolling through Nazi Germany in the final, brutal weeks of World War II. That is Fury. David Ayer directed this tank warfare masterpiece, and the claustrophobia he creates is almost unbearable. Brad Pitt leads a crew that includes Shia LaBeouf in what is genuinely one of the most underrated performances of that entire decade. LaBeouf shaved a cross into his forehead and reportedly actually cut his own face for the role. That level of commitment bleeds through every single frame. What makes Fury different from every other World War II film is the intimacy. You are not watching armies clash across vast landscapes. You are trapped with 5 broken men who have been fighting together so long they have lost track of who they were before the war started. There is a dinner scene in the middle of this film that contains more tension than most action sequences. 2 young German women, a meal, a knock at the door. Nothing blows up, but you will barely be able to breathe. The battle sequences are ferocious and viscerally realistic, but it is the quiet moments between the explosions that will stay with you for days after the credits roll. Number 13, Tropic Thunder. 2008. Nobody saw this one coming on a war movie list, did they? But hear this out completely before skipping ahead. Tropic Thunder is one of the sharpest, most ruthlessly intelligent pieces of filmmaking about war movies ever created. Ben Stiller directed and starred in this film about a group of pampered Hollywood actors dropped into a real combat situation while filming a Vietnam War epic. Robert Downey Jr. plays an Australian method actor who undergoes a controversial procedure to play a black soldier. It sounds insane because it is insane, but Downey pulls it off in a way that becomes a savage critique of Hollywood ego and performative identity. Tom Cruise in a fat suit and bald cap as a monstrous studio executive is one of the funniest, most committed supporting performances in modern comedy history. But strip away the comedy, and what Tropic Thunder is actually saying about how Hollywood exploits real military trauma for entertainment is genuinely cutting and uncomfortable. The film earned 82% from critics for good reason. It is not just funny, it is smart in ways that most pure war dramas wish they could be. Every rewatch reveals another layer of savage commentary hiding underneath the absurdity. Number 12, Greyhound. 2020. The year is 1942. Tom Hanks is commanding a destroyer escort crossing the North Atlantic, and somewhere beneath the freezing black water, German U-boats are hunting him. Greyhound was made for Apple TV+, and it might be the most underseen Tom Hanks film of the last 20 years. The script is relentless. There is almost no downtime. From the moment that first torpedo alarm sounds, this film does not let you breathe for nearly 90 minutes straight. Hanks wrote the screenplay himself, adapting C.S. Forrester's novel, and his understanding of this character goes so deep that the film barely needs dialogue to communicate everything the commander is feeling. The naval warfare tactics on display here are presented with extraordinary authenticity. Every order Hanks barks across that bridge is a real tactical decision, with real life or death consequences unfolding in real time. The CGI ocean work is staggeringly immersive. You feel the cold, you feel the isolation, you feel the weight of command pressing down on a man who cannot afford to show fear to a single person under his watch. At 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, this is a criminally underrated gem that deserves a massive audience. Number 11. Black Hawk Down, 2001. Some war films make combat look strategic. Black Hawk Down makes it look like pure confusion, with bullets screaming from every direction. Ridley Scott drops you into Mogadishu in 1993, where a U.S. military mission to capture key lieutenants of a Somali warlord spirals into one of the most chaotic urban battles ever filmed. The setup sounds simple. Helicopters go in, soldiers hit the ground, the mission should be quick. Then, 2 Black Hawks are shot down and suddenly nobody is in control anymore. Josh Hartnett, Ewan McGregor, Tom Sizemore, Eric Bana, and a massive ensemble cast do not play superheroes here. They play exhausted men trying to survive a battlefield that keeps changing every second. What makes the film so gripping is the way it refuses to give the audience a comfortable distance. The camera shakes, the streets feel endless, every rooftop feels dangerous, every corner could be the last corner. Apple TV lists the film as an action movie centered on the disastrous Mogadishu mission, and its 77% tomato meter score proves critics recognized its raw intensity. This is not a clean war movie. It is loud, messy, frightening, and unforgettable. Number 10. Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, 2023. Forget everything you think you know about Guy Ritchie. This is not Snatch. This is not Lock, Stock. This is something completely different and something completely extraordinary. The Covenant tells the true inspired story of American soldiers in Afghanistan and the Afghan interpreters who risked everything to keep them alive. Jake Gyllenhaal plays a special forces sergeant who owes his life to his interpreter Ahmed, played with devastating power by Dar Salim. When their unit is ambushed, Ahmed carries Gyllenhaal across miles of hostile terrain to safety. The debt that creates, and Gyllenhaal's obsessive mission to repay it, drives the second half of the film with the force of a freight train. What makes this film shocking is how emotionally obliterating it becomes. The 98% audience score is the highest on this entire list, and audience scores do not lie about emotional impact. Real veterans watching this film have spoken openly about how accurately it captures the bond between soldiers and interpreters, a bond that America largely abandoned when troops withdrew. Ritchie does not preach. He just shows you what loyalty looks like when it costs everything, and then asks whether the people in power ever honored it. Number 9. Hacksaw Ridge, 2016. One of the most extraordinary true stories in the history of warfare, and Mel Gibson tells it with an intensity that will leave you genuinely shaking. Desmond Doss was a conscientious objector who refused to carry a weapon, but enlisted as a combat medic during the Battle of Okinawa. He crawled through one of the most hellish battlefield environments of World War II, saving 75 soldiers while under constant enemy fire, alone, at night, unarmed. Andrew Garfield transforms completely for this role, abandoning every trace of his previous screen persona to become this gentle, determined, extraordinary man. The first half of the film plays almost like a quiet romance in a courtroom drama. The second half is one of the most relentlessly violent and authentic battle sequences ever committed to film. Gibson does not sanitize the horror. Bodies are torn apart. Men burn alive. The ground itself seems to be dying. And through all of it, Doss moves with a quiet, impossible grace, pulling the wounded to safety one by one. The 84% critic score and 92% audience score reflect a film that achieves everything war cinema should aspire to. It shows you the worst of human behavior and the absolute best simultaneously. Number 8. Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, 2003. Here is a film that the entire world somehow agreed was great in 2003, and then collectively forgot existed for 20 years. Master and Commander is a masterpiece. That is not hyperbole. Peter Weir directed Russell Crowe in a film set entirely aboard a British naval warship in 1805, and the result is one of the most immersive and technically astonishing war films ever made. There are no modern conveniences hiding behind period costumes here. Weir put his cast on a working tall ship and made them learn how to actually sail. The authenticity radiates from every frame. Crowe plays Captain Jack Aubrey as a man completely in his element, which makes the rare moments of doubt all the more devastating when they arrive. The film covers themes of duty versus humanity through the relationship between Aubrey and his ship's surgeon, played with quiet brilliance by Paul Bettany. Every debate they have over a meal or a violin duet carries more weight than a dozen battles. The naval combat sequences are conducted with military precision and bone-crunching physical brutality. An 85% critic score and 80% audience score barely scratch the surface of what this film accomplishes. It is patient. It is disciplined. It rewards every second of your attention.
Number 7. 1917, 2019. Sam Mendes did something nobody had ever successfully done at this scale before. He shot a war film to look like a single, unbroken take. One continuous shot. 2 hours. No cuts to safety, no moment to exhale. 2 British soldiers must cross no man's land and miles of enemy territory to deliver a message that will stop 1,600 men walking into a massacre. Roger Deakins won his long overdue Oscar for cinematography on this film, and watching it, you understand completely why. Every single frame is composed with such precision that the film functions simultaneously as a survival thriller and as a moving painting of World War I's most inhuman landscapes. George McKay's performance as the lead soldier is a study in barely contained terror and absolute determination. There is a sequence where he runs through a burning, collapsed village at night, with enemy soldiers chasing him through the ruins and the orange firelight. And the shadows and the chaos combine into something that looks like a fever dream painted by a master. 88% from critics, 88% from audiences. Perfect alignment and perfect score for a film that demanded and achieved perfection in its execution. Number 6. Inglourious Basterds, 2009.
What if a group of Jewish American soldiers decided to terrorize the Nazis with the same brutality the Nazis used against everyone else? What if a Jewish cinema owner in Paris got to rewrite history with her own hands? Quentin Tarantino took the most evil chapter of the 20th century and made it into something viscerally satisfying, in a way that feels transgressive and triumphant at the same time. Christoph Waltz won the Academy Award for playing Hans Landa, and it remains one of the greatest villain performances in cinema history. The opening dairy farm scene alone contains more tension than most entire films. Tarantino builds dread through conversation. Nobody talks like people in real life, but somehow they reveal every truth about power and fear and survival through the heightened language he gives them. Brad Pitt as Lieutenant Aldo Raine delivers every line with a drawling menace that is simultaneously comic and genuinely threatening. The climax in a Parisian cinema is one of the most cathartic sequences ever constructed. Critics gave it 89%. Audiences gave it 88%. This is Tarantino operating at the absolute peak of his powers, using the war genre as a canvas for something that belongs entirely to him alone.
Number 5. Dunkirk, 2017. Christopher Nolan stripped everything away for this one. No backstory, no character development in the traditional sense, no emotional speeches, just survival. Just the beach, just the water, just 3 simultaneous timelines colliding toward the same desperate miracle. Dunkirk covers the 1940 evacuation of 400,000 Allied soldiers from the beaches of France, and Nolan presents it as pure experiential cinema. You do not watch Dunkirk, you endure it. Hans Zimmer's score is a ticking clock that begins with the first frame and never stops. The sound design alone earned its Oscar. Fionn Whitehead as a young soldier on the beach communicates an entire arc of war's dehumanizing terror almost entirely through his eyes. Mark Rylance, as a civilian sailor steering his small boat toward the carnage, carries the entire moral heart of the film in his stillness. Tom Hardy in a Spitfire with barely enough fuel to reach France and back makes aerial combat feel like chess played at 300 miles per hour. A 92% critic score and 81% audience score for a film that genuinely reinvented how war can be depicted on screen. Required viewing for anyone serious about cinema. Number 4. The Hurt Locker, 2008. There are war films about battles, and then there is The Hurt Locker, a film about the few seconds before everything explodes.
Catherine Bigelow takes the Iraq War and shrinks it down to one terrifying job: bomb disposal. Jeremy Renner plays Staff Sergeant William James, a man so calm around death that you slowly realize calm might actually be the problem. He is not just brave, he is addicted to the danger, and that addiction makes him both brilliant and impossible to trust. Every scene is built around pressure: a wire, a parked car, a watching crowd, a dusty street that suddenly feels like a trap. Anthony Mackie and Brian Garrity give the film its emotional weight as soldiers forced to follow a leader who may save them one moment and risk their lives the next. Apple TV describes it as an intense portrait of elite soldiers disarming bombs in combat, and the film's 96% tomato meter score shows why it remains one of the most respected modern war dramas. This is not about glory. It is about what happens when war becomes the only place a man feels fully alive. Number 3, Glory, 1989. Before we get to the top 2, this list demands a stop at the most criminally underappreciated entry on it. Glory came out in 1989. It has a 95% critic score and 93% audience score. It won 3 Academy Awards, including Denzel Washington's first Oscar. And somehow, it is still a film that millions of people have never seen. Edward Zwick directed the story of the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, the first formal unit of the United States Army to be composed of black soldiers during the Civil War. Matthew Broderick leads, but it is Washington and Morgan Freeman and Andre Braugher who make this film transcendent. Washington plays a freed slave turned soldier with a rage and a dignity and a complexity that is almost impossible to look away from. His scenes are electric. His non-verbal communication in the famous flogging sequence communicates decades of pain and defiance without a single word. The battle sequences are conducted with brutal honesty. These men are fighting for a country that does not fully recognize their humanity, and they fight anyway with everything they have. Glory does not let you look away from that contradiction. It forces you to sit inside it and understand what it actually cost. Number 2, Saving Private Ryan, 1998. 27 years after its release, the first 25 minutes of Saving Private Ryan still cannot be topped. Steven Spielberg put his camera into the chaos of the D-Day landing at Omaha Beach and created something so viscerally terrifying and so completely authentic that veterans who had survived the actual battle reportedly wept uncontrollably and left theaters unable to speak. Tom Hanks as Captain John Miller is the definitive Spielberg everyman pushed past every human limit. The film follows his squad as they push deeper into German-held France on a mission to retrieve one soldier whose 3 brothers have all been killed in combat on the same day. Matt Damon, as Private Ryan, appears only briefly, but his presence haunts every mile of the journey. The ethical question at the heart of the film, is one life worth 8, never gets a clean answer, and Spielberg is honest enough not to pretend otherwise. A 94% critic score and 95% audience score for a film that changed war cinema permanently and irrevocably. Everything made after 1998 exists in its shadow, and most of it knows that openly. Number 1, The Battle of Algiers, 1966. And the number 1 spot goes to a film made in 1966 that most of the people watching this video have probably never seen, and that needs to be corrected immediately. The Battle of Algiers was directed by Gillo Pontecorvo, and it covers the Algerian independence movement's armed uprising against French colonial rule in the mid-1950s. The film holds a 99% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. 99%. That is not a typo. Shot in grainy black and white with mostly non-professional actors, it looks and feels so real that audiences in 1966 assumed they were watching documentary footage. The Pentagon screened this film for military officials in 2003 as a case study in counterinsurgency tactics. Think about what that means. A foreign language film made 6 decades ago was considered essential required viewing by the United States military because of how accurately and how intelligently it depicts the mechanics of urban guerrilla warfare and the brutality of occupation. It presents both the colonized and the colonizer with unflinching fairness. It does not let anyone be simply the hero or simply the villain. It is cinema that operates as history, as philosophy, and as warning simultaneously. If you only watch one film from this entire list, make it this one. Nothing else comes close. So there it is, 15 war films sitting on Apple TV right now that most people will completely ignore while rewatching the same 3 shows for the 4th time. Drop the one you are watching first in the comments below. Hit subscribe because the next list is even more controversial than this one.